Chapter 61 Life Hanging on a Grass Rope. The bright morning sun shone on Qingmao Mountain. In the academy, the elder spoke about important details.
Tomorrow, we are choosing the second goo worm for refinement. Everyone here has experience in successfully refining goo worms. This time, you can solidify your experiences. For the selection of the second goo worm, consider it carefully. With the experience of cultivating these few days and understanding your own body, consider it as a whole. Normally, it is best if you pair the second goo well with your vital goo.
A goo master's first goo was known as the vital goo, and once it was chosen, it would be the foundation of their development. After that, the second and third goo worm would be nurtured upon this footing stone and decide the goo master's cultivating direction. After hearing the academy elder's words, the youngsters began to ponder, and only Fang Yuan was sleeping soundly on the table. He had worked hard for half the night yesterday, and after returning to the hostel, he still continued in his goo master cultivation, nurturing his aperture. When the sun had risen, only then did he sleep. The academy elder looked at Fang Yuan and frowned, but did not say anything. Ever since the clan leader had spoken to him, he had adopted a let Fang Yuan do as he wishes, and I am not going to care attitude. Which goo worm should I choose? As the students thought about it, they subconsciously looked towards Fang Yuan. Speaking of which, Fang Yuan already has his second goo worm. Yeah, a liquor worm. To actually get a liquor worm out of gambling rocks, his luck is off the charts! If I had the liquor worm, would I advance to middle stage first too? The students' thoughts varied, having admirers and jealous people among them. Ever since the day of the interrogation, Fang Yuan's liquor worm was successfully exposed. The origins of the liquor worm did not raise suspicion. The clansmen were both enlightened and also exasperated at Fang Yuan's luck. Why don't I have such luck? Guyu Chi-Chen, who was also a C-grade talent, sighed deeply in his heart. Quite a while ago, his grandfather had asked around and tried to procure a liquor worm for him. To think that even as a family branch's inheritor, he was not able to have one. To think that Fang Yuan managed to get the liquor worm before him. Compared to Chi-Chen's envy and depression, Vice Chairman Fang Zhang was full of spirit. Brother, I will definitely surpass you. He looked at Fang Yuan and said in his heart before looking away. These days his eyes were shining with light, and he felt a sort of excitement towards life. His face was flushed red and his forehead was glowing. Even his steps were quicker and lighter. The academy elder saw all of it, and immediately understood that the Guyu clan leader had started secretly teaching Fang Zhang. These underhanded methods were obviously not for the public to know. The academy elder turned a blind eye. Soon, it was night once more. Fang Yuan entered the secret cave again. Ring, ring, ring. In his hand, a wild rabbit was struggling, and there was a bell on its neck. This was a wild rabbit that Fang Yuan had caught on the mountain. The bell was naturally attached by him. After a day, the stuffy smell in the secret cave had dissipated, and the air was fresh. The cave passage entrance was open. It was silent inside. Fang Yuan half-kneeled on the floor as he inspected the floor. Yesterday, he had sprayed rock powder all over the area, and this thin layer of powder was inconspicuous.
The passage entrance's rock powder is intact. Thus it seems that during my absence, nothing strange has crawled out of it. The rock crack entrance does have a footprint, but that's mine, so evidently no one else has come here.
Fang Yuan felt at ease after his inspection. He stood up, using his hands to pull dead vines from the wall. Next, he sat on the ground and his leg was used to hold the wild rabbit in place, leaving his two hands free to weave the vines. This was work that normal goo masters wouldn't know, but Fang Yuan had too much life experience. In his past life, many a time was he so poor that he couldn't afford to feed his goo worms, leaving them to starve to death, one by one. For a time, He had primeval essence, but no goo worms. He became just like a mortal person. Even living was difficult. Having no choice, he learned to weave the grass ropes into straw sandals, hats, etc., and sold them in exchange for primeval stone fragments to feed himself. While twisting the grass ropes in his hands, Fang Yuan's memories resurfaced. The anguish and suffering from back then had transformed into his soundless laughter now. The rabbit underneath his foot continued to struggle, the bell ringing non-stop. A pair of two strings touch for long. 10,000s of twists and thousands of returns make their inseparable love numerous. Delicately and slowly, with the passing of years, letting them converge, complications, entanglements, and turns present. Weaving the grass ropes. Isn't it just like experiencing life? In the secret cave, the red light shone onto Fang Yuan's face, showing his youthfulness and experience intertwining together on his face. Time seemed to have stopped too, silently appreciating the young man weaving his ropes. Ring, ring, ring. An hour later, the wild rabbit rapidly entered the passageway, the bell on its neck ringing continuously. In a few breaths, it left Fang Yuan's field of vision. Fang Yuan held onto the improvised grass rope that he wove temporarily, and on one end, the rope was attached to the rabbit's hind leg, dragging into the tunnel with it. After a while, the rope stopped all movement. This didn't mean the rabbit had reached the end of the tunnel. It could have been killed by a trap, or just decided to rest midway. Fang Yuan began to pull at the rope, retrieving it. The rope gradually tightened as he tugged. On the other end, a force of strength suddenly tugged back as the rope started to move towards the cave again. Evidently, the rabbit on the other side had felt the tugging force, and in its fluster, started to move deeper. After many attempts, the rabbit finally reached the end of the path, and no matter how Fang Yuan tugged on the rope, it only tightened and relaxed. Maybe the rabbit had reached the end of the tunnel, or maybe it had fallen into a trap and gotten stuck. It was simple to test and find out the answer. Fang Yuan started to retrieve the rope. His strength surpassed the rabbit by a mile, and eventually he dragged the rabbit out by force. The rabbit struggled at the other end, but the rope was made from materials acquired from the wine sack flower goo and rice pouch grass goo. Although it had been dead for years, it remained sturdy, unlike normal grass. The wild rabbit was once again in Fang Yuan's hands, jumping about. Fang Yuan inspected the rabbit and saw that it had no injuries. Then he finally breathed out in relief.
For now, it seems this segment of the passageway is safe.
With this result, the rabbit thus lost its value, and Fang Yuan killed it instantly, throwing its corpse on the ground. He could not let the rabbit go, for animals also had memories. If it came back again, and like the liquor worm, attracted outsiders, that would be very bad. He breathed in deeply. After several tries and probes, he finally stepped into the passageway carefully. Even with the wild rabbit exploring, there were many traps and mechanisms that specifically targeted humans. A small animal like the rabbit would be unable to trigger it. Thus, Fang Yuan still had to be careful. The tunnel was straight, diagonally slanting towards the bottom. The deeper it was, the wider and taller the passage became. Fang Yuan had to lower his head when entering at first, but after more than 50 steps, he was able to take large strides with a straightened back, and after 100 steps, he could walk while lifting his upper arms and brandishing them left and right. The tunnel was not that long. It was only around 300 meters. But Fang Yuan spent around 2 hours venturing before he finally reached the end of the path. On the way, he was vigilant and explored step by step. At the end of the path, he was already sweating profusely.
It's very troublesome without a detection, goo worm.
Fang Yuan wiped the sweat off his forehead, and after confirming his safety, calmed down and inspected the area. In a glance, he was stunned. At the end of the tunnel, there was a huge rock. The rock's surface was smooth and protruded towards Fang Yuan's direction, resembling Jia Fu's belly. This rock alone halted Fang Yuan's progression. Other than this huge rock, there was nothing around Fang Yuan.
Is it because of an accident that the tunnel path was blocked?
Fang Yuan squinted as he thought of the possibilities. Before the Flower Wine Monk died, he was eager to set up his inheritance. He used the 1,000-li Earth Wolf spider and created a tunnel path. The path led deep within the mountains, guiding the inheritor in. After hundreds of years, the passage was unable to withstand the corrosion of time, and at one point, one of the areas collapsed due to a lack of maintenance. All sorts of accidents often happen in life.
If this is the case, won't I be stuck?
He went forward and touched the rock. The rock was halting his progression. Its size was like a door. One could only imagine its overall thickness. Fang Yuan could use the Moonlight Goo to carve away at the rock wall, but if he wanted to grind off this huge rock, it would take at least a year or two.
It seems I'm forced to use tools. I'll need to use spades and pickaxes to break the rock. Except if I do this, I might reveal some traces. The construction sounds might also travel out.
Thinking of this, Fang Yuan frowned deeply. He was weighing the pros and cons. If the risk was too huge, he would rather give up on this strength inheritance. After all, if others found out this secret, all the plotting and acting that Fang Yuan had done would go to waste, and his life would even be in danger. Chapter 62. Choosing Goo Again in the Goo Room. The sun rose, signifying the arrival of another day. Students lined up properly, faces flushed with excitement as they stood before the Academy Goo storage room. Today was the day where they would pick their second Goo. As the first to advance to middle stage, Fang Yuan had the priority in choosing. Thus he stood at the front of the queue. Behind him were Guyu Mo Chen, Guyu Fang Zhang, and Guyu Qi Chen. The Goo storage room's door was opened by the guards, and Fang Yuan was the first to set foot into it. The Goo room was not big, but it was a sight to behold. The surrounding walls had square holes in them. Some of them were big, but others were small, holding all sorts of containers in them. There were rock pots, jade pots, cages made of weaved grass, and some porcelain wares. All sorts of goo worms, being all rank 1, were stored in these containers. The Academy probably spent more than 1,000 primeval stones every day just to feed these goo worms. Fang Yuan glanced through and found that in many of the containers, they were already empty, having no goo worms inside. The goo worms in the storage room were replenished once a year. Previously, when they were choosing their vital goo, most of the youngsters chose the Moonlight Goo. Thus, the storage room had no Moonlight Goo left at the moment. The storage room had no windows. There was only a small skylight at the rooftop. The sunlight shone in from the skylight and formed a rectangular golden image on the ground. The first time when he entered the Goo room, Fang Yuan already had an objective and chose the Moonlight Goo immediately. But now he had several possible targets in mind. Yet, these targets also depended on whether there was stock in the storage room. Fang Yuan moved along the left wall and strolled inside slowly while examining the catalog. 5 steps later, he paused. A square box frame near his shoulder had a bronze bowl inside, and within it was a goo worm. This goo was like a bedbug, flat and wide with a small head, having an oval body. It was yellow-orange throughout, and emitted a faint bronze-like glow. This was the Bronze Skin Goo, a choice for most close combat goo masters. The Academy's martial arts instructor raised such a goo, and once activated, causes the body to glow bronze, greatly raising defense. Fang Yuan's knowledge was deep and broad, so of course he did not have any urge for this goo. He continued forward and saw a Stone Skin Goo. The Stone Skin Goo and Bronze Skin Goo were similar in appearance, but the Stone Skin Goo's body was gray instead, like an art piece made of rock. After 6 Stone Skin Goo, there was the Iron Skin Goo. Iron Skin Goo and Bronze Skin Goo were outwardly similar, but only with a tiny difference. It was silently staying in an iron bowl, unmoving. It emitted a black iron-like glow around its body. As humans have clans, so do Goo. The three Goo that Fang Yuan saw simultaneously were all from the same series. They were similar in appearance and had similar effects.
Iron Skin, Bronze Skin, Rock Skin, Jade Skin Goo. If there's a Jade Skin Goo, I may as well choose it.
Fang Yuan mumbled as his heart felt a tiny flicker of expectation rising, and he continued walking. However, he was destined to be disappointed, for after the Iron Skin Goo, he saw the Beast Skin Goo. Jade Skin Goo and Beast Skin Goo belonged to the same series as the Bronze Skin Goo, etc., but they had great difference in value. The Beast Skin Goo was the most common, even cheaper than Rock Skin Goo, but it had more evolutionary lines and could fuse with more varieties of goo. The Jade Skin Goo was the most rare goo in the series. Its market value was only second to the Liquor Worm, and at times the price would fluctuate and rival the Liquor Worm itself. Fang Yuan took a look, but he did not find a Jade Skin Goo. He was not disappointed, but laughed in relief.
Guyu Village is just a middle-sized clan. The Academy Goo storage is only of middle-tier quality. To have a Jade Skin Goo, that is rather impossible.
The left side of the wall had already been inspected, so Fang Yuan swapped to another wall and continued strolling. On this wall, there was mostly the Longhorn Beetle Goo. Similar to the Skin Goo series, Longhorn Beetle Goo was a large clan amongst the Rank 1 goo worms. Their outer appearances were similar. They had long and circular cylinder figures, the back area having many outlines. A large part of the body was a black color, giving out a metallic luster. It had a pair of feelers that were long and exceeded the body size. Its chin was strong, and it gave out screeching noises, like the sound of timber being sawed. With this, a few Goo Masters from some places would call them the Sawing Tree Bunch. What first entered Fang Yuan's vision was a brute force Longhorn Beetle Goo. Its entire body was a red metallic color, and it had a pair of antennae that were coarser than the usual Longhorn beetles. On the top surface of the antenna, there was a bamboo joint-like growth with every small interval. This brute force Longhorn Beetle Goo was highly sought after in the market. Earlier, the caravan that came to Guyu Village had people who sold large numbers of this goo. The brute force Longhorn Beetle Goo gave Goo Masters temporary super strength. It had the reputation of the strength of one bull, and could sustain for 5 breaths. But it had 2 weaknesses. One was that every activation consumed too much primeval essence. Rank 1 middle stage required 10% primeval essence, but if converted back to initial stage, it would consume 20%. Another was wear. If the Goo Master had a weak constitution, using this goo a lot would cause their muscles to get injured, even experiencing muscle tearing. Only Goo Masters with a strong body would choose to use this goo. A small-sized person like Fang Yuan was unsuitable for it. Fang Yuan knew this too, and walked past the brute force Longhorn Beetle Goo, continuing to look around.
Oh, this isn't bad.
He halted his steps. It was a yellow camel Longhorn Beetle Goo. The beetle's figure was a tiny bit thinner and longer than the brute force Longhorn Beetle Goo. The entire body coated in dark yellow color. Its pair of long feelers did not have bamboo joints, and the roots were yellow in color, slowly fading into black at the tip. The brute force Longhorn Beetle Goo could grant a Goo Master temporary strength, and this type of strength was immediate, only lasting for 5 breaths. But the yellow camel Longhorn Beetle Goo could grant the Goo Master durability and allow their stamina expenditure to be greatly reduced. However, it could only sustain for 15 minutes. At the same time, it had no repercussions. Among the rank 1 goo worms, the yellow camel longhorn beetle goo had high market value, comparable to the moonlight goo and only losing to the jade skin goo and liquor worm. Fang Yuan inspected the surroundings and found that there was only one yellow camel longhorn beetle.
The goo is not bad, but it's not compatible with me.
Fang Yuan shook his head, giving up this goo. Very quickly he walked and reached the corner of the wall. Having finished looking at the second wall, he was not satisfied. The goo in the storage room were only of this quality. If he wanted to get lucky or get a surprise goo, the chances were slim. Fang Yuan turned to the third wall and continued inspecting. On this wall, the boar goo were dominant. There's the flower boar goo, pink boar goo, black boar goo, and white boar goo. Pink boar goo had the least value. Almost no goo masters chose them. It only had one ability, and that is to gain weight. After a goo master injects their primeval essence, the pink boar goo would change their constitution and cause them to get fat. No matter how skinny they would be able to become a big fat person. There were only 2 to 3 pink boar goo in the storage room, obviously of no nurturing value. The flower boar goo was the most abundant, having a dozen at least lining into a row. These goo worms had flower patterns on the surface, either white and black and pink, or white and pink. There were even some that had all 3 colors. The flower borer goo's use was similar to the brute force longhorn beetle goo, temporarily adding strength to the goo master. The brute force longhorn beetle goo gave one bull strength, and the flower boar goo gave one boar strength. The flower boar goo spent the same amount of primeval essence as the brute force longhorn beetle goo, but could sustain for 10 breaths, twice of the brute force longhorn beetle goo. Because the goo master gained lesser strength, thus they had lesser side effects.
The flower boar goo is the most common goo worm, and it is sold most abundantly in the market. Its price is half of the brute force longhorn beetle goo. Truly value for money. But among the boar clan, only those 2 last goo have greater value, being even more expensive than the jade skin goo and liquor worm.
Fang Yuan's eyes shone in light of his deep thoughts. A black boar goo or white boar goo could sell for 600 primeval stones on the market. Once it appeared, it was often sold immediately. The black and white boar goo's ability was to change the goo master's body constitution and raise their strength permanently. Although the brute force longhorn beetle could grant a bull strength, it could only be used for 5 breaths, uses too much energy to sustain, and had strong after effects. The black and white boar's strength increment, although little at a time, would be accumulative over time, and once obtained, the strength would belong to the goo master wholly. Even if the goo dies, this strength will still remain on the goo master's body. This is the reason why the black and white boar goo's value is higher than that of the liquor worm. The public recognizes that the liquor worm's value should be slightly inferior to the black or white boar goo. The liquor worm can only refine primeval essence, and after an intense battle, a goo master's primeval essence is easily depleted. For the remainder of the battle, they can only rely on their martial arts and physical strength. This is when the white and black goo show their worth. They're more reliable than the liquor worm.
If I can refine a black boar goo or white boar goo, that would be good.
Fang Yuan was just imagining the scenario. But with this type of goo storage room, which only has one yellow camel longhorn beetle, how can there be white or black boar goo, which are so rare? He walked another round and saw all the goo worms the room had to offer. As expected, there was nothing that truly captivated him. At last, he retrieved a little light goo at a corner of the wall. There were 5 little light goo in the storage room. This goo was oddly shaped, looking like a pentagram, and only half as large as a fingernail. The little light goo was mainly paired with the moonlight goo, a common assistance-type goo worm for the moonlight goo. To Fang Yuan, who had chosen this goo, it was merely an average option. but at least it suited his development path. Feng Yuan is out! Jeez, finally, after so long! I wonder what goo he chose. He already has the liquor worm. This is his third goo. Maybe he won't be able to raise them properly. Feng Yuan leisurely walked out of the storage room. The students outside had started to become restless. It's my turn! I wonder what goo has Feng Yuan chosen? Once Gu Yu Mo Bei saw Feng Yuan stepping out, he hurriedly took big steps and entered the storage room. He checked and found that the sole yellow camel longhorn beetle was still there. Mo Bei could not refrain from being overjoyed, immediately taking it away. Afterwards, Fang Zhang went in. I have the moonlight goo for offense, but I lack a defensive type goo worm. Gu Yu Fang Zhang, after a long consideration, decided to choose a bronze skin goo. Gu Yu Chi Chen was the fourth to enter. I need an evasion ability, so in future battles I'll be able to hit others, but others cannot hit me. I'll be virtually unbeatable. He looked left and right, and finally chose a Dragon Pill Cricket Goo. Chapter 63. Gifting the Jade Skin Under the Moon. The sun lowered and the moon rose, signaling the arrival of nightfall. Inside one of the concealed courtyards in the Guyu village, a locust tree that stood with complicated branches and luxuriant leaves, its robust and spacious treetop that was like a jasper imperial canopy, enveloped the entire courtyard. The moonlight was gentle like water, traveling through the leaves and branches of the locust tree, spilling into the courtyard. A gust of wind blew, sending the tree leaves rustling, the shadows of the tree swaying slightly. It was under this tree that two people stood. Gu Yu Bo used a gentle gaze and looked at Fang Zhang.
Fang Zhang, today you chose your second goo. I wonder what it is.
Reporting to clan leader, sir. Today I chose a bronze skin goo. Gu Yu Fang Zhang stood rigid, saying with a look of admiration. Gu Yu Bo nodded, and after pondering, he replied,
Not bad. It's a good choice.
Gu Yu Fang Zhang stood before Gu Yu Bo, his body tensed and tightened. Hearing Gu Yu Bo's praise, he did not know how to reply, so in the end, he only laughed. Clan leader, I chose randomly.
You think I'm not serious in praising you? No.
Gu Yu Bo stared at Fang Zhang, a smile on his face.
Do you know, choosing a goo, it shows a person's disposition. You chose the bronze skin goo for defense. Paired with the moonlight goo, it is both offense and defense. This shows your pure nature. In this world, offense and defense are like frontal and ambush, yin and yang, soft and hard. This is the king's path. Gu Yu Mo Bei chose the yellow camel longhorn beetle. This goo grants stamina and allows him to sustain battle. This shows his stubborn and strong attitude. As for Gu Yu Chi Chen, he chose the Dragon Pill Cricket Goo, allowing him to increase his dodging ability. This shows that he does not like frontal attacks, being a witty person, good at tactics, but also showed the weakness in his character.
Gu Yu Fang Zhang was stunned after listening, for he did not expect that such a simple matter could reveal that much information and logic. Consequently, his attitude towards Gu Yu Bo became even more respectful. Clan leader, what did my brother choose? Fang Zhang thought of Fang Yuan and asked. Gu Yu Bo laughed.
He chose the little light goo. This goo is used to assist the moonlight goo, and can make the moonblade attack stronger. This shows his extreme active and invasive personality.
Indeed, Big Brother seems to be like that, Fang Zhang muttered. Gu Yu Bo took Fang Zhang's expression into consideration and etched it into his mind. Those who were rulers had their unique ability. Although Gu Yubo and Fang Zhang did not interact for long, Gu Yubo's experienced gaze had already seen through Fang Zhang. Him telling Fang Zhang about Mo Bei and Qi Chen's decisions had deeper meaning. It was to help Fang Zhang analyze these two people, for he anticipated him defeating the two of them and establishing the role of clan leader with his A-grade talent. However, Gu Yubo would not say it out loud. He would not instigate Fang Zhang's actions. As the clan leader, his every word and action had political implications. If he directly controlled Fang Zhang and dealt with Qi Chen and Mo Bei, if word spread, it might be misunderstood as the clan leader's political assault. If that's the case, the implication would be huge, and it might even cause a clan dispute, harming the entire village. There was another point. Gu Yubo was waiting for Fang Zhang to understand his intentions. He spent time and effort to nurture Fang Zhang, but it was not to nurture a rank 4 or 5 fighter. A fighter without political knowledge was like a double-edged sword. He needed the future leader of the clan.
I analyzed Mo Bei and Qi Chen's personality for Fang Zhang, but he did not notice my intention, instead asking about Fang Yuan's situation. It seems that he has great trauma regarding Fang Yuan, but he's also at his rebellious stage. He wants to beat Fang Yuan. That's understandable. If only Fang Zhang had Fang Yuan's intelligence. I've seen many youngsters these years, but when it comes to political wits, Fang Yuan tops them all. It's a pity he only has C-grade talent.
Gu Yubo sighed internally, but his smile got even more gentle. He took out a goo worm from his pocket. This is jade skin goo? Fang Zhang, seeing this goo worm, said lightly with his eyes wide open. Gu Yubo said,
Compared to the bronze skin goo, this jade skin goo is much better, not only using less primeval essence, but also giving greater defense. Fang Zhang, do you want it?
Clan leader! Fang Zhang was shocked, and he looked at Gu Yubo, stuttering. Of course I want it.
I can give it to you.
Gu Yubo laughed even more amicably.
But as the clan leader, I have to be impartial, and cannot give it to you for no reason. Thus, I have a condition.
Fang Zhang nodded repeatedly. What condition? Gu Yubo's smile vanished, showing a stern expression.
I want you to be the first to break through rank 1 into rank 2. Be the first place in terms of cultivation. And this jade skin goo is your advancement reward.
Advance to rank 2? Guyu Fang Zhang hesitated a moment. He had just become rank 1 middle stage. After middle stage was upper stage. And after that there was still peak stage.
What's wrong? You afraid? Then I can give this goo to another.
Gu Yubo pretended to keep the jade skin goo. Fang Zhang was incited by this sentence. Immediately, his brain heated up and he shouted, No! I promise you! I will defeat everyone and be the first rank 2 cultivator!
That's the way.
Gu Yubo showed his gentle smile again, placing the jade skin goo in Fang Zhang's hand. He thought in his heart,
Fang Zhang, I know you feel inferior, but this inferiority complex is harmful to your growth. The best way to dispel your inferiority is success. You have A-grade talent, so advancing to rank 2 first is your greatest advantage, and also the easiest success you can achieve. You must succeed, for if you fail even this, I would be too disappointed.
At the same time, Fang Yuan stepped into the secret cave behind the rock crack again, getting to the tunnel. This time, he did not bring a steel spade, pickaxe, or hammer, but carefully observed the surroundings. He was discouraged by this setback the previous night, and on the way back to the village, he felt something amiss. Only today in the dormitory, when he used the spring-autumn cicada to refine the little light goo, did he suddenly understand the weird part of the situation.
The huge rock blocking my path is too round and smooth. It's definitely man-made. That's to say, the flower wine monk purposefully set this to block the path. But why did he set this hurdle at such a place?
Fang Yuan pondered. He looked at his surroundings again. The ground of the path was smooth, and the top was curved. The walls on both sides were red soil, emitting a red light.
Huh?
When he looked at the ground again, he found a point of suspicion. The ground near the giant rock was slightly darker in color. The color difference was not very obvious and not easily found under such a dimly lit environment. Fang Yuan knelt down, touching the ground, feeling a sense of wetness. But this path was so dry. Where was the water coming from? Fang Yuan grinded the soil with his fingers, finding out that the soil on this patch of earth had issues. It was very soft and loose, not lumpy like the dry red soil. Fang Yuan's gaze shone. Experience and intuition told him this area had the key that the flower wine monk had hidden. This key was the clue that would allow him to continue moving forward. Fang Yuan began to dig the soil. It was loose, so he did not spend much effort. After digging an inch deep, there was a peculiar fragrance rushing into Fang Yuan's nostrils.
This fragrance is thick and luxurious, yet not common. It seems delicate and elegant. Could it be?
Fang Yuan's heart moved as he thought of a possibility, his hands moving even faster. While digging, the area under the soil suddenly emitted a faint dark gold light.
It really is what I'm thinking of.
Fang Yuan's eyes shone, his hand movements becoming more delicate, carefully digging the surrounding soil away, expanding the hole. After a while, a dark gold-colored flower bud that was buried under the ground appeared in front of him. It was 2 inches deep in the ground, around the size of a stone mill. The bud's surface delicate, and with the dark gold color, it appeared to be mysterious and elegant.
It really is the Earth Treasury flower goo.
Seeing this, Fang Yuan breathed out deeply. He was not eager in peeling away the flower petals, but took a rest on the ground instead, wiping the soil off of his hands. Then he slowly stretched his hand and pried open the dark gold-colored petals. The Earth Treasury flower goo was like the combination of a lotus and kale. Its petals were tightly knitted together with numerous thick pieces, slippery when felt. As Fang Yuan opened the petals one by one, it was like revealing thick layers of silk. Once it left the main body, the huge dark gold-colored petals would disperse quickly. It was like snowflakes that melted into the air. After uncovering around 50 to 60 pieces of petals, the bud had shrunk in half, revealing the flower core. The core's petals were smaller and thinner, its texture becoming more smooth and fine. It was no longer like silk, but more like thin pieces of paper. Fang Yuan's movements became gentler and slower, only opening a piece of petal in every few breaths. The petals became increasingly transparent, and after a while, when Fang Yuan had opened the pieces of thin paper-like petals, he stopped his movements. The Earth Treasury flower goo, at this moment, only had the last layer of petals left. These petals overlapped each other, forming a fist-sized ball. The petals were translucent, thin as paper. Inside these petals contained a golden liquid, and in the middle of this liquid, a goo worm was sleeping inside. Fang Yuan looked intently, but he could only see a blurry shadow of the goo worm, and he could not tell which goo it was. He was close to it, and his breath was blown on the flower core. The spherical flower core began to shake, the golden liquid also moving gently inside the petals. Goo worms would die without food, and only a few goo worms could seal themselves. To protect and conserve goo worms, goo masters have thought of many methods. The Earth Treasury flower goo was one of them. It was a one-time use type goo, and once implanted in the ground, it could not be moved. Its food was simple, which was earth energy. As long as it was planted in the ground, it would be able to survive with sufficient earth energy. It only had one use, and that is to contain a goo within the flower heart and immerse the goo in the golden liquid. This golden nectar could to an extent imitate the stealing state and let goo worms fall into hibernation.
The flower wine monk planted this earth treasury flower goo, so the goo within has to be for the inheritor.
Fang Yuan stretched out a finger and peeled the remaining petals carefully, revealing an opening. The golden liquid flowed out along his finger, feeling like soybean oil. The flower core began to soften with the loss of the golden liquid. Fang Yuan moved his finger and the petals were split, allowing him to retrieve the slumbering goo worm. It was a cute ladybug, only the size of the thumb's fingernail. Its body was a milky white color, and if overlooked from the back, it was like a circle. Its head only occupied a small area, while the rest of the body was its large fat stomach and bright shiny exoskeleton. Its 6 tiny limbs were also cream-colored, hidden under its stomach.
White boar goo!
Fang Yuan showed an expression of joy on his face. Chapter 64. Easy to do secretly, difficult to do openly. The temperature had gotten higher. The sun shone intensely in the afternoon, hanging right over everyone's heads. The caravan left, and the inn's business fell again. Fang Yuan stepped into the cafeteria, immediately attracting the attention of the shop assistants. A familiar face rushed over and gave him a flattering smile. "Oh, young master, you're here! Please take a seat."
Give me a jar of wine, and cut me 600 grams of beef. Serve a few side dishes.
Fang Yuan strode through the cafeteria and approached the window seat that he always sat at. The shop assistant showed a difficult expression. "Young master, my apologies, but during the last time the caravan came, the innkeeper sold all of the green bamboo wine. We do not have this wine here anymore." Fang Yuan nodded, not feeling surprised.
Then give me a jar of rice wine, and tell the innkeeper, brew more green bamboo wine this year. I am pre-ordering 100 jars. As for how much the advance payment will be, you can count first and report to me.
Now that the liquor worm was exposed, Fang Yuan did not have to be restrained in buying wine. "All right, I will definitely convey your words. Please be at ease, young master." The shop assistant patted his chest, sounding confident. Soon the dishes were served. Fang Yuan drank and ate while staring out the window. In such hot weather, especially during mealtimes, there were few people on the streets. The sunlight shone on the ground and the green-colored bamboo tall houses. A few barefooted mortal farmers carrying cement, steel spades, or shoulder poles walked in the front. They had just finished their farm work and were heading home. 2 children held the bamboo frame of their windmill toy and ran about. The one behind chased while crying and shouting. It seemed that the boy in front had stolen his windmill toy. At this moment, 2 young goo masters wearing green belts walked hurriedly on the street.
Get lost! Don't block the way!
A goo master pushed the farmer in front of him. The farmers frantically gave way. The 2 young goo masters walked through arrogantly. Fang Yuan looked with a distracted gaze in his eyes, as part of his mind was already focused on his aperture. Within the aperture, the water wall continued to flow as his green copper primeval sea rose with raging waves. The liquor worm was playing around in the primeval sea, at times comfortably rolling around, and at times curling into a ball. The spring-autumn cicada was in deep slumber, hiding its appearance. The round body of the white boar goo spread its wings and drew circles in the sky. The white and black boar goo were equally well known, both being precious and rare rank 1 goo worms. Their market value was even greater than that of the liquor worm. Although they had the same usage and similar appearance, their future advancement routes were greatly different. The black boar goo and the green silk goo would combine into the rank 2 black mane goo, and then into the rank 3 steel mane goo. But the white boar goo was most compatible with jade skin goo, where it would turn into rank 2 white jade goo, and later into the rank 3 heavenly mugwort goo. The steel mane goo could let the Goo Master's hair become as tough as steel, raising both offense and defense. The heavenly mugwort goo allowed the Goo Master's body to become tough as white jade, while at the same time reducing the damage from attacks such as the Moonblade. Fang Yuan was slightly happy. Getting the white boar goo was just one aspect of it, but what made him truly happy was the Flower Wine Monk's strength inheritance.
The white boar goo can increase strength. The Flower Wine Monk set a giant rock to block the way, so it seems I need to refine this goo, and with enough strength, push the giant rock away and continue forward. This must be the first test. With the Flower Wine Monk's meticulous setup, I can infer that there has to be future inheritance trials, a second or third hurdle. Most importantly, I can confirm that he set this strength inheritance not as a trap, but with true sincerity. With this inheritance, I can reach rank 3 faster and leave Qingmao Mountain, venture outside, gaining greater opportunities.
What does a Goo Master need most in cultivating? The answer is one word: resources. Fang Yuan needs to cultivate, thus he needs resources. But the clan's resources are limited, so if he wants more, he needs to fight for it. Not only fighting for resources, he has to be victorious. To him, the more he fights and the more victories he obtains, the more he would reveal more of his trump cards and make others more wary. Wariness, when accumulated to an extent, would turn into suppression and hurdles blocking his path. Fang Yuan killed a family servant, but why did the Mo family stay indifferent? Robbing the classmates, why did their families not pursue it? Fang Yuan resisted the clan and refused to be part of the system. But why did the clan leader choose to be so lenient? It is all because he is weak, because he is a C grade. They feel strong, and do not feel like bullying the weak. Under the family system, being petty with the weak Fang Yuan not only causes them to face humiliation, it also makes others feel the person is cold and unfeeling, ruining one's social relationships. Weakness was a safety umbrella that Fang Yuan had for now, but with his continued competition for resources, Fang Yuan would appear stronger. This would make everyone wary of him, and begin to try recruiting him. No matter which side he chooses, he would face suppression and troubles from the other factions. Fang Yuan was aware of his predicament. He was in a delicate position. He seemed to have offended everyone, but he had not violated any law in reality. Yet, with time, his cultivation will rise, and conflicts will arise and worsen. Fang Yuan knows that this conflict would escalate, but the later it escalated, the greater benefit he would gain. Thus, the Flower Wine Monk's inheritance was perfectly timed. With this strength inheritance, he would have hidden resources. Using this, he could be free of the system's control and walk his own path, cultivating at his own speed and secretly accumulating strength. Once he was adopted into the system, he would need to side with a faction. Even if he did not want to compete, he would definitely be dragged into the political strife. Inside the system, one is a pawn. You have to be a proper pawn for others to use you willingly. After they trust and use you, you have the chance to climb upwards. And even during that process, you have to be careful to not become a discarded pawn. Fang Yuan was clear of this procedure. He knew it too well. Even with his vast knowledge, there was nothing he could do for this situation. These were the rules. The most crucial part was his C-grade talent. To the clan, there was no desire in investing in him. Often he would be treated as a discarded pawn. The most optimum route to progress was to work alone. This way, he could avoid most competition. Towards the higher-ups in the village, the image he had created earlier would be sustained.
This world's matters. It is always easily done secretly, but difficult to do openly. Using the Flower Wine Monk's inheritance, I can cultivate and gather strength secretly without gaining attention and suppression. But the extortion has to continue, for if it stopped abruptly, it would invite suspicion, and I also need primeval stones.
Fang Yuan considered his future plans. He really needed primeval stones. Other teenagers of his age had only started refining and feeding a second goo worm. He, however, had also refined the little light goo and recently acquired the white boar goo, thus having a total of 4 goo worms. Previously, he needed around 1 primeval stone a day just to feed the moonlight goo and liquor worm. Now, after calculating, he needed more than 2 pieces every day just as expenditure. If he included his cultivating needs and living expenditures, he would need to use around 5 primeval stones a day. 5 primeval stones were enough to feed a family of 3 mortals for 5 months. On hand at the moment, he had several hundred primeval stones, but it was not enough to sustain such an expenditure in the long run. More importantly, the further he got, the greater his expenditure would be, especially after advancing to rank 2. Every time he tried combining goo worms, it would cost a huge sum. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan felt troubled. The matter of primeval stones was a problem, and by relying on just extortion and the resources at hand, he could only delay this problem from erupting. Moreover, he had another problem, and that was the white boar goo's feeding. The white boar goo's food was pork. Boar obviously referred to pigs. The boar goo's series food was all pork. Black and white boar goo had huge appetites. Every 5 days they would need to eat around 1 fully grown pig's amount of meat. Pork in this world was not cheap, and mortals could only afford to slaughter one during the New Year's celebration. Without the large-scale cultivation technique of Earth, the price of pork and beef was not something mortals could eat often. At the same time, the topography of Qingmao Mountain was precipitous, the area of residence narrow. How much space could be allocated just for rearing livestock? You eat what you can procure at where you live. The villagers were able to eat pork occasionally because of the hunters hunting wild boars in the mountains.
It seems that I have to go hunting myself from now on.
Fang Yuan's eye shone with a glint. Relying on the village to purchase pork, first was the expenditure of primeval stones. Second, that it would attract attention. Even if you loved eating pork, how could a person eat so much in a short period? If he hunted himself, it would not only resolve this problem, but also alleviate his current financial stress.
Shop assistant, bill!
Thinking of this, Fang Yuan hesitated no more, and after footing the bill, he left the inn. These few days the academy was on break, so that students could refine their second goo worm. Fang Yuan decided that he could use this time well. He would leave the village and scout the mountains, and then kill some wild boars and get himself some pork. Chapter 65. Quickly Get Lost. The mountain forest was boundless, and Fang Yuan walked through patiently. The sunlight permeated through the huge and tall woods, shining and creating a ground of mottled and fragmentary tree shadows. The green grass beside his feet was like a mattress, and the wildflowers bloomed with bright colors. His ears picked up the sound of birds chirping, or the trickling of flowing water. The further he got from the village, walking towards the outer surroundings, the more risky it was. Thus, Fang Yuan was even more careful. The wilderness was very dangerous. Goo masters had to have at least rank 3 cultivation to be able to venture the wilds alone and explore. But this did not mean that they were safe. Rank 3 goo masters also died in the wild, sometimes even rank 4s. Wild beasts, poisonous worms, human threats, and at times the weather, these were all causes of death. However, Fang Yuan wanted to kill the wild boars which were often found around the village's periphery.
The environment around the village. Every now and then, goo masters from the clan would come out and clear the area. This environment to a rank 1 middle stage like me is still safe, but I have to be careful. Wild beasts and goo worms like to move around.
With his experience from his previous life, Fang Yuan scouted carefully. Time gradually passed, but Fang Yuan gained nothing.
Damn, Qingmao Mountain is still too big for the current me. I have no scouting type goo, and I'm not familiar with this environment. Plus, Qingmao Mountain is periodically cleared up. To find a wild boar, it is too difficult. Let's go to the foot of the mountain.
Qingmao Mountain has 3 mountain villages: Guyu Village, Zhang Family Village, and Bai Family Village. The Zhang Family Village was on the Four Mountain, the Guyu Mountain Village was at the mountain waste, and the Bai Family Village was at the Back Mountain Waterfall. Other than the 3 villages, there were also tens of tiny villages at the mountain foot, all being inhabited by mortals. The 3 mountain villages split these small villages amongst themselves, being the ones controlling them behind the scenes. Once they lacked family servants, they would pick from these small villages. But they would not choose Goo Masters. Nurturing a Goo Master, they would only choose a clansman, even if they knew that among these mortals were people with talent. Although rare, they would still not use them. This world was heavily biased towards bloodline, and holding power amongst relatives was the political stability that the clan needed. In order to expand in size, many mountain villages had adopted outsiders into their system. Eventually, the power flowed out and caused internal conflicts, thus causing the entire clan to break down or weaken. No matter the world, political power was still based off military force. This is the truth. And troops are the brute force department, representing strength. By controlling strength, one gains status and authority. Of course, the clan's rules are not ever constant. They also adopt new blood. Every year there would be outsiders marrying into the clan, leaving their servant status, and the children they give birth to would be a Guyu, a new generation clansman. This is like connecting a tiny stream into a spring. Do not underestimate this stream, as without it, a spring would be still and eventually rot. With it, there would be life, and the spring would grow even stronger. Fang Yuan's previous servant, Shen Kui, was betting on this idea of marrying a Guyu and leaving her servant status. Fang Yuan left the mountain, and after 30 minutes could see thick smoke rising from under the mountain. After a while, he could see a wide hill in his vision, and a village around that area beside a small river. The small villages around the vicinity were under the rule of the Guyu village. Although they were close by, the small villages were not as safe, thus requiring regular cleanup. For mortals to live in such conditions and manage to survive, to Fang Yuan, he naturally could accept such a fact.
Oh?
On the mountain path nearing the village, Fang Yuan sensitively found traces on the ground. His past experience told him that this was a wild boar's traces.
The chase!
Fang Yuan raised his spirits as he followed the clues, getting deeper into the mountains. Green moss spread over the stones, ancient juniper trees and tall pagoda trees completing the great forest. Under the strong light of the sun, the mountain woods of summer were even more profound and serene. The lush underbrush suddenly moved a little. A few deer eating the sumptuous grass looked up, vigilantly staring into the bushes, their ears twitching. The bushes that were half a man's height split apart, and a young man crawled out from within. His skin was pale, and his black hair was short. He was wearing a modest linen shirt. It was Fang Yuan.
Swoosh!
The wild deer were frightened, and their 4 thin limbs quickly moved, sprinting away. In a moment, they vanished from Fang Yuan's vision.
These are female deer. Their fur can be shaved to make warm clothing. And deer meat is also some goo worm's food. If it's a male deer, the antlers are most precious, and some are even necessary ingredients for a goo worm's advancement.
The wild was dangerous all over, and at the same time, it had great treasures. Fang Yuan looked at the direction that they were escaping in, and retracted his gaze. His target was wild boars, not these deer. He continued moving. There was the sound of buzzing. Nearing this noise, Fang Yuan stopped in his tracks.
Beehive.
He looked forward and saw a beehive hanging on a tree. The bee's nest was massive, the size of that of a wicker basket. It appeared to be a sort of grayish dark yellow color. Outside the bee nest was a few dozen bee soldiers flying around. Occasionally, a few worker bees would enter and exit.
Beehives have honey, and honey is the bear strength goo's food. Thus, the Zhang family has great demand for honey. This beehive is only a small-sized one, and the chances of producing a goo isn't high. If I had the bronze-skin goo, I could risk getting stabbed and collect the honey. What a pity.
In this world, not all insects are goo. Goo are the spirit of the world, the body of the laws. How can it be so cheap? Among a swarm of insects, normally only the insect king is a goo. But that depends on their size and development, so if a swarm is too small, there is no goo either. Taking the beehive ahead as an example, because it is too small, there is a low chance of having a goo. Fang Yuan routed around this beehive and continued forward. The traces of the wild boar were getting more evident, and Fang Yuan knew he was getting close to it. Thus he became more careful, as wild boars are very dangerous. Wild boars are not reared pigs. When a mature wild boar fights with a tiger, the tiger may not win. In this mystical world, wild beasts are not simple.
Oh, what a situation.
When Feng Yuan finally found the boar, he saw that it had fallen into a huge pit. A sharpened green bamboo was situated at the bottom of the pit, where it had pierced the wild boar and was causing it to bleed. Seeing the accumulated blood in the pit, he could tell that the boar had already been in the trap for at least 15 minutes. But this wild boar continued to struggle, whimpering and howling, still full of life.
This trap is obviously set by hunters. To think I'm reaping the rewards.
Fang Yuan smiled, but his expression was grim. These traps threatened him too. If he had fallen into it, within 7.5 minutes, he would be dead. Although the village surroundings were cleared regularly, the hunters often came to hunt and set many traps. Some could be discerned, while others were designed to be hidden. And if Fang Yuan could not discover them, he might fall into the trap.
Any area in this mountain could have a trap buried by the hunters. But among hunters, with every trap set, they would inform each other on the location. It seems that I have to find an old hunter's residence and find out about the trap locations from him. Along with the surrounding wild beasts activity area, and with this intel, I would not have to search like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
This was the problem of not having a scouting-type goo worm. But to find a good scouting-type goo, it was not easy. In a short time, he could barely make do with a hunter's intel. With such a thought, Fang Yuan's wrist flicked, and a moonblade flew out, easily hitting the wild boar. With a light ring, the entire moonblade cut through the boar's neck and caused a long and slender wound. Then, with a plop sound, a blood fountain spewed out from it. The spewing blood caused the wound to become bigger, and thus the blood fountain also enlarged. The boar screeched, thrashing about with the last of its energy, until its movements became smaller and smaller. Fang Yuan silently looked at the scene, his face calm. The wild boar's life faded as its eyes were staring wide and perfectly round, the muscles on its body twitching, and the warm blood filling the trap hole, a thick smell of blood permeating the surroundings.
Survival or death. This is the theme of nature.
At this point, human voices were heard.
Second brother Wong, within our village no one is better than you at hunting, especially killing wild boars. Your family's old Wong is the hunting king in the entire region. Who would not know of his great name?
That's right. Second brother Wong inherited the old hunter's abilities. To hunt a wild boar, it is naturally as good as caught.
Second brother Wong, why didn't little sister Wong come with you today?
After all the bootlicking, a grave and stern voice said,
Hunting a wild boar. How can it show my true abilities? Today I want to kill 3 boars. You'll see. Ergo done. Stop lusting after my sister, or I'll thrash you.
Men and women marry when they're of age. What's wrong with liking little sister Wong? Moreover, I'm not the only one. Which guy in your village doesn't also fancy her too? Second brother Wong, in my opinion, you are also 19 already. You should marry a woman and have kids already.
The voice spoke again.
I'm a true blue man. How can I lust after such a small temptation? One day, I will leave this Qingmao mountain and explore the world and learn about everything under the sky. That will truly be fitting of my manly status.
Saying so, the 4 young hunters walked out of the forest. The lead hunter had a tall build, carrying a bow and arrow, his muscles bulging and his eyes full of spirit, showing a powerful aura. When he saw Fang Yuan, he frowned and screamed.
Which village are you from, kid? How dare you try to take advantage of me, Wang Heir? Quickly get lost!
Chapter 66. A person's death is akin to a pig's death.
Get lost?
Hearing Wang Heir's words, Fang Yuan immediately broke into a cold smirk, and he brandished his palm in front of him.
Swoosh!
With a light sound, a blue-colored moonblade shot forward. At the same time, he put strength into his legs and rushed towards the 4 hunters.
Go, Master!
The hunters were stunned and shouted upon seeing the moonblade. The moonblade had already fired, and they rushed to evade.
Sk!
A person did not evade fast enough, and his right forearm was hit by the moonblade. Immediately, his bones and flesh split. The entire wrist and his forearm cut through and fell on the ground.
Ah!
He laid on the ground, screaming in fear and pain. His left arm was like an eagle claw gripping his right arm. His right limb spewed bright red blood non-stop, quickly dyeing the ground red.
Spare me! We did not offend you intentionally!
The other 2 mortals, on seeing their companion's state, went pale. They hurriedly got on all 4s and kneeled down, kowtowing to Fang Yuan non-stop.
Bunch of fags! What are you afraid of? It's just a Gu disciple!
Only Wang Heir was still standing. Fang Yuan attacked without warning, and this had made him frightened and angry. His arms went behind his back, and with a swift action, he grabbed hold of the bow and arrow in his arms.
Stop! Come further and I'll shoot you!
Wang Heir retreated as he readied the arrow while screaming.
Oh?
Fang Yuan narrowed his eyes. This Wang Heir was rather intractable. Normally, when mortals saw Gu Masters, they would be cowering in fear. Yet this man was able to remain calm. He must be rather bold.
Swoosh!
Another moonblade shot out towards Wang Heir.
Unappreciative bastard!
Wang Heir snorted, and killing intent rose from his heart. He took a sidestep and evaded the moonblade while shooting an arrow. The arrow was fast, and with a swoosh, it reached Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan ducked, his head lowering slightly and evading the arrow as he continued rushing forward, quickly reaching Wang Heir. Wang Heir bravely threw away the bow in his hand and clenched his bull-sized fist, running towards Fang Yuan. He had a large build, his back strong like a wolf's, and his waist like a bee's. He was at least 50 centimeters taller than Fang Yuan. The sunlight shone from behind him, and as Fang Yuan rushed towards him, he could see a dark shadow hanging over his face, his eyes emitting killing intent like a wolf.
No! Stop quickly!
The 2 hunters, seeing that the 2 were going to collide, frightfully shouted.
Die!
Wang Heir's eyes were fierce as the muscles on his face twitched, showing his sinister and insane expression. Both his fists flew towards Fang Yuan.
Boom!
His fist was fast and heavy, even cutting the wind. Fang Yuan could see the fist getting bigger in his eyes, but his expression was unchanging as he took a side step.
Swoosh!
At the crucial moment, he avoided the fist and forcefully rotated his body, knocking Wang Er's left hand away. Wang Er laughed sinisterly as he waved his fist horizontally, about to reach Fang Yuan's back. But at this moment, a bright flash of sunlight entered his iris. His back was originally facing the sun, and now that he had turned around, the eye-piercing sunlight temporarily made his eyes hurt, and his vision went blank. Fang Yuan smirked as he backflipped in the air, dodging Wang Er's fist, at the same time waving his right arm.
Swoosh!
The third Moonblade flew along the sunlight trajectory. Wang Er's senses tingled as he felt an unprecedented danger. He turned his head around, and the next moment, the eerie blue Moonblade flew past.
Be careful, Brother Wang Er! Did he avoid it?
The two kneeling on the ground forgot to beg for forgiveness, staring wildly. The piercing sunlight shone on their face. At this moment, time seemed to slow down. The surrounding sound vanished, and the world was silent. The afternoon blazing sun paved a white background, and on this backdrop, Wang Er's body became a black shadow. His body was in the air at an arc, his muscular body stretching into a crescent shape like an open bow, full of masculine appeal. His head lowered as he tried to avoid the Moonblade. The Moonblade flew like a snail in the air, its eerie blue light almost invisible under the sun's rays. The white background, the black shadow, and the blue Moonblade. These three formed a brilliant stage for a moment full of life and death. The Moonblade flew past. The shadow that represented Wang Er landed smoothly as it followed the trajectory. He was safe. Whew! Seeing this, a young hunter breathed out a sigh of relief. He avoided it! Another hunter was cheering internally. But at this time, a small piece of the shadow's head flew out along with red fluids, separating from the shadow and spewing everywhere. The blue Moonblade gradually dissipated in the air. That black shadow was like a broken bow. As the energy accumulated within it disappeared at once. It turned into a beautiful but sad fallen leaf, silently landing on the ground. The two hunters' irises shrunk into pins. Their mouths were agape, stretching to their bodily limits. Splat! The bright red fluid landed on their faces. The two touched their faces. Blood. They jolted awake. In their perception, time had returned to normal, and noise returned. There were birds chirping, water flowing, and their companion screaming while grabbing his broken arm. Second Brother Wang? A hunter called, his voice full of horror. Wang Er was their leader. He's dead! Another hunter cried out, his face grim. Brother Wang Er is our strongest hunter. A while ago he was still talking to us, but to think the next moment he's dead! He shouldn't have angered that Goo Master. We mortals are no match for Goo Masters. The two hunters were frightened and shocked. At once they were like statues kneeling on the ground. Fang Yuan got up from the ground. Earlier, to avoid Wang Er's fist, he rotated his body in the air and lost his balance. After shooting the Moonblade, he fell to the ground, but this fall was worth it, as Wang Er's fist would have caused him to vomit blood on the spot. After all, Fang Yuan had no defensive goo, and his body was that of a 15-year-old. Now he stood up. Other than his shoulders hurting, he had practically no injuries.
This Wang Er is very strong, much stronger than that Mo family servant Gao Wan. If any other student encountered him, they would lose without a doubt. Even a rank 1 upper stage Goo Master could lose to him out of carelessness.
Fang Yuan stared at the corpse of Wang Er deeply. When at rank 1, Goo Masters are still able to be threatened by genius mortal martial artists. This Wang Er was truly skilled. His archery was fast and stable. Just relying on this, it could match the Moonblade. In fact, the Moonblade might even be inferior, as the arrow has a larger range. His fighting skill had reached the peak of mortals, a strong body with tough bones, and he was also ruthless. With Fang Yuan's small body, he could not go head-to-head with him. Thus, Any other student would lose undoubtedly. Unfortunately for Wang Er, he met Fang Yuan. Once he appeared, Fang Yuan noticed his bow and deduced that he could not fight long range with him. The Moonblade only had a range of 10 meters. The bow had far greater range than the Moonblade. Thus, Fang Yuan ditched long-range combat. He quickly closed the gap between them, showing a physical fighting stance. Wang Er had no choice but to discard his bow and fight physically with Fang Yuan. But Fang Yuan did not really think of engaging in close combat with Wang Er. He used the angle of the sun's rays and caused a weakness in Wang Er before shooting out his third Moonblade. He was already at the middle stage now, and with the Liquorworm's refinement, the Moonblade had the attack power of an upper stage Goo Master. At such a close range, with Wang Er's weakened vision, his defeat was guaranteed.
But this Wang Er is indeed skillful. I wanted to decapitate him, but at the crucial moment, he relied on his senses and reflexes and evaded half of my attack, causing my Moonblade to cut off only half of his head. Life and death is nature's law. All living beings are equal, and everyone has their right to survive and be killed. There might be royalty and lower beings, but in the face of death, a person's death is no different from a pig's. What's the difference? They're both dead.
Fang Yuan took a final look at Wang Er's corpse and sighed in his heart. Chapter 67. Don't worry, I'll spare you. The tree roots penetrate into the mountain's soil, letting their green hands reach up towards the sky. Thick and solid tree trunks faced each other, looking similar through the distances. The exuberant branches and leaves intertwined in midair. Under these trees was a wooden house. The wooden house was made entirely from thick bark, leaking out a type of genuine, firm smell. The wooden house was not a newly built one, but it had gathered many years. Thus the house's surface had green moss growing all over, and some of the tree trunks had begun to sprout out tender little branches. Around the wooden house was a tall and great fence constructed from green spear bamboo. The back and front area was all vegetable fields, and in the middle of the fields was a man-made well. At this time, a young and beautiful lady was drawing water from the well. While she wore simple and plain clothing, it was still hard to mask her complexion. She was 16 years of age, and she had a big pair of black eyes, the black and whites of her eyes clearly defined, pure like crystals. The sunlight penetrated through the overlapping and luxuriant tree leaves, shining onto her face, letting her skin reflect light like it was white snow, also showing a sort of transparent red flush and gentleness to her. Her black hair hung down unruly and half covered her cute earlobes. The pink lips were pursed at the moment, and she was clenching her set of white, perfect teeth, her face showing an expression full of concentration. She used all her strength to pull the bucket of water out of the well. With another breath, she moved the bucket to the ground outside the well. The young girl wiped her forehead and breathed out, using her pale hand to fan her own face. The wooden house's door opened, and an old man came out. The old man's hair was a mix of black and white, his face having layers of wrinkles. Although his eyes looked tired, they showed a hint of brilliance, like an elderly tiger. Although old, the tiger's authority was still evident.
Lass, this bucket is too heavy. I said let me carry it. Why are you secretly watering the plants behind my back again?
The elderly man looked at the young girl and showed a doting expression. "Father," the young girl sweetly called, "you were hunting until late last night. I wanted you to sleep in today. It's just a water bucket. Look, I can carry it, right?"
You always love acting tough.
The old man's voice was full of helplessness, but his eyes were once again doting. He took a large step and got to the well, stretching out his hand and easily grabbing the bucket.
Come, lass, Let's water the plants together.
The air was full of the smell of wild grass and flowers, and the summer's wind blew warmly and passed by the trees, turning into a gust of refreshing wind. The wooden house on the mountain had a vegetable field, and the girl used the pail, lowering her back to water the plants. The father was in charge of getting the water, rotating between two water buckets. The atmosphere of a loving family was evident in this tiny space.
I'm too old. Just a few buckets and I'm already exhausted.
After a while, the old man stood by the well, wiping the sweat off his forehead and sighing deeply. The young girl turned back, smiling like a flower, saying, "Father, you finally realized it. You're already so old, yet you want to act tough all the time. How many times have I told you? Let second brother do the hunting. You should be resting at home, enjoying your life at this age."
Ha 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 ha.
The old man laughed, nodding.
Relying on your second brother's abilities, he can roam this mountain easily. With his archery skills, it even surpassed me in my youth. But I still cannot feel at ease. His heart is too wild, and with just martial arts skills he wants to soar. Young men love to imagine freely. They all have this problem.
"Father," the young girl dragged her words. The old man laughed even more heartily now, his tone carrying a mischievous hint.
Of course, there's still you. You're not young anymore. It's time to get married. I found a good partner for you, and with your good looks, there's no problems with finding a good family.
The girl's face grew red like a tomato. Immediately she felt too embarrassed, and she was at a loss for words. The old man looked at the sky, imagining the great future as he sighed.
Once your second brother suffers some setbacks and curbs his nature, I will retire and never go into the mountains. Next, I will find you a good family and watch you marry and have children, preferably a chubby boy. Your father wants to take care of his grandson. That's all I want. A person's life is not easy, and as a hunter, how many can have a good ending? All my partners and comrades from back then are already gone. I am all that's left.
"Father, you're wrong," the young girl consoled. "What do you mean there's only you left? You still have us."
Huh?
The old man was laughing and was about to reply, but he suddenly heard a sound and turned his head. The little entrance of the bamboo fence was broken from outside.
You are Old Man Wang?
Fang Yuan's cold expression with his eerie eyes stepped forward with a lump of moonlight in his right hand. The old man was shocked as he looked at the moonlight on Fang Yuan's hand. He rapidly knelt.
This old man pays his respects to Lord Goomaster! Old Man Wang, your son dared to offend me. I have executed him. Bring his corpse forward!
Fang Yuan stood proudly, staring at the kneeling old man as he brought out the main topic. As he finished, the two young hunters carried Wang Er's corpse in. Seeing this corpse, Old Man Wang's body shook. "Second brother!" the young girl screamed pitifully, rushing forward and grabbing Wang Er's corpse, her face flushed with tears.
Wang family's daughter.
The two young hunters, seeing the girl they liked crying in front of them, felt terrible. They wanted to console her, but no words came out.
Old Man Wang, I heard you're a hunter, the best among the few villages. At such an old age, you can still hunt and get a good result every time. This is great.
Fang Yuan paused for a moment and continued expressionlessly.
Draw me a map of all the traps in the nearby mountain area, now, as well as the results of your observation of wild beast territories from your hunting experience. Draw it for me, and I will spare your son's sin of offending me. If not...
These villages were under Guyu village's control. The villagers were all farmer slaves of the Guyu clan. With Wang Er's offense for offending his master, According to the clan rules, the entire family would be implicated. Old Man Wong's body shook again, almost falling to the ground. An impact like this was too sudden and great to him.
Murderer! You're the murderer that harmed my brother! You treat human lives like livestock, and you dare confront us? I will exact revenge for my brother!
The young girl screamed, her voice full of hatred and anger towards Fang Yuan. She rushed towards him. But she was only halfway there when she was stopped. By her father.
Disgraceful wretch!
Old Man Wong screamed as he gave the young girl a tight slap, sending her to the ground.
Your second brother is dead. Do you want to die too? Do you want this old father of yours to be old and alone forever?
The old man cried profusely saying this, his body trembling furiously.
Father!
The young girl was awakened by this, and her tears poured out. Her voice was full of sadness, unjust, pity, hatred, and helplessness. The old man turned his body, facing Fang Yuan as he kneeled and placed his forehead on the ground. His voice shook as he said,
Lord Gu-master, my son offended you and deserved to die. I shall draw the map for you now. Please spare us with your magnanimity.
Fang Yuan's expression turned milder. He looked at the old man arrogantly, saying,
Be at ease. As long as you draw honestly, I will spare you. But don't think of lying to me, for if I find any suspicious points, your lives will be forfeit. I understand. This old man understands.
Old Man Wong kowtowed non-stop.
Please, Lord Gu-master, allow me to retrieve my brush and paper. No need.
Fang Yuan waved his hand, looking at the two hunters he had forced along. He ordered them,
Enter the room and find a paper and a brush, and bring them out.
Yes, Lord Gu-master! The two youngsters did not dare to rebel under Fang Yuan's authority.
Lord, the paper and brush are on the square table in the kitchen.
Fang Yuan's eyes shone, but he remained silent. The two hunters barged into the house and quickly brought out the paper and brush. In the southern border, the paper was made of bamboo, where the quality was bad and the paper was tough with green overlays. Paper like this was suited to the moist weather of the south. If it was rice paper, it might be destroyed after a week due to moisture. The old man carried the brush and kneeled on the ground, drawing out black lines, curves, or dots. He used over 10 bamboo papers before handing them all to Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan looked through them and split these bamboo papers into two, handing them to the two hunters.
Look to see if there are any inappropriate areas. Every mistake, I'll give you 1 primeval stone.
Chapter 68. There is no innocence in nature. The two hunters took the bamboo papers, their hands trembling, eyes shining.
This is Hunter Wong's life experience and effort. Us hunters, although we keep in contact, it's all about trap placement. We will not tell others about the wild beast distribution. This bamboo paper, it's all the information that Hunter Wong had gathered since his ancestors.
So this valley has a herd of wild deer. After I hunt these deer, I won't have to worry about expenses for the next 3 months. This stream has a cave of mountain bears? How close! I almost hunted at this region. Noted. I must note it all.
This was precious information. It could be said to be a hunter's rice bowl. From their forefathers, these experiences and information were obtained at the expense of their blood and lives. But Old Man Wong's family had always hunted for a living. When it got to Old Man Wong, he had reached the peak of his family line, the acclaimed #1 hunter. Information in the hands of such a person is the most useful and truthful. The two young hunters checked for nearly 15 minutes, glossing through the map multiple times. Only after Fang Yuan rushed them did they finally hand over the bamboo paper reluctantly. During this period, Old Man Wong was kneeling on the ground, his forehead touching the ground as he expressed his respect. The young girl was lying on the ground, as if she had gone lifeless.
There is no problem, Lord.
The trap areas in these bamboo papers are all accurate, the two answered.
Lord Goo-master, this concerns me and my daughter's life. I would definitely not lie to you.
The old man on the ground shouted as he continued to kowtow.
Not bad.
Feng Yuan waved the stack of bamboo paper, yet suddenly his words changed.
But I don't believe it.
Old Man Wong jolted, raising his head, but he only saw an eerie blue moonblade enlarging within his vision.
Shoop!
A skull flew into the air, fresh blood spewing all over.
Ah! Lord, this...
The two young hunters were taken by surprise. Shock and disbelief showed on their faces.
Father!
The young girl cried out profusely as she leapt towards Old Man Wong's headless corpse. But midway, a moonblade flew towards her face. She fell onto the ground, lifeless. Her beautiful face, from her forehead to her chin, slowly showed a thin red line. The line became thicker as fresh red blood oozed out, flowing down along half her nose and half of her lips. They flowed onto the black soil, dyeing half of her face bright red. The other half of her face, though, was still beautiful, the skin fair and rosy. Under the bright blue sky, it seemed even more lustrous, like a work of art.
At least she looks decent.
Feng Yuan looked at the dead girl blandly, nodding in satisfaction.
Wong family's daughter!
One young hunter fell onto the ground in despair after seeing her demise with his own eyes.
Lord Goo-master, spare us!
The other hunter, feeling Feng Yuan's gaze, nearly died of shock as he plopped onto the ground.
Get up, go inside, and search,
Feng Yuan ordered.
I know that a hunter's family always keeps a beast skin map. On top of it is the terrain, trap locations, and beast territories. Find it for me, and I'll let you keep your lives.
Yes, we'll search immediately. Give us some time, Lord Goo-master.
The two frantically got up and ran into the wooden house. Sounds of wardrobes being overturned and falling could be heard from inside the wooden house. But, even though the hunters ransacked the house, there was no beast skin map to be found.
Lord, please give me some time. We'll find it right now.
The two hunters were terrified as they got more desperate and searched boorishly, smashing many furniture pieces in the process.
Fuck! Where is it? Appear! Please appear!
They muttered as their bodies shivered, their eyes going bloodshot.
Useless trash.
Feng Yuan slowly walked into the house.
Lord, forgive us! Please,
The two young hunters shivered like they were electrified and fell to the ground, begging for their lives. Feng Yuan ignored the two and observed the house. There were 4 rooms in the house, a living room and a kitchen. All the furniture was in a mess, having been ransacked. Feng Yuan slowly stepped in, his steps producing echoes in the wooden house.
It has indeed been searched. That shouldn't be right. Almost every hunter has a beast skin map inherited through the generations, getting refined along the way, recording all the beast's territory and pitfalls. This is a livelihood of a hunter. How can they not have it?
Feng Yuan stood pondering.
Moreover, I tested that old man Wong earlier, purposefully getting the 2 hunters to search for the paper and brush. The old man immediately called out the location of the paper and brush, probably worried that they might find the beast skin map. Thus it has to be in this house.
Feng Yuan observed the house again, and suddenly inspiration struck as he looked at the fire pit. The fire pit was connected to the chimney, used in the winter to gain warmth. There was even some residual charcoal in the fire pit. Feng Yuan walked to the fire pit, slowly squatting down and taking a shovel beside the fire pit, digging out the charcoal. Most of the charcoal still had their wooden shapes. They were brittle and easily broken in two.
Oh?
Feng Yuan inspected, suddenly finding a charcoal block that had a very tough material and was very heavy, not like the other charcoal blocks. He used the shovel to dig out this charcoal block, smashing it on the ground. The charcoal smashed into bits, revealing a bamboo tube. The two hunters gasped at this scene. Fang Yuan took the bamboo tube and opened it on one side, shaking it, causing a map to fall out. The map was heavier than the stack of bamboo paper, made with a piece of white beast skin. The beast skin was huge, over a meter long and half a meter in breadth. There was black, green, yellow, red, and blue lines on it, forming a complicated map. Fang Yuan was slightly taken aback looking at it. The map's range was very large, extending far beyond the village's vicinity. As a mortal, it was not easy to map out areas so far away. His gaze focused on 5 spots, those with wild boar herds. 2 were small-sized, 2 were medium-sized, and there was a large-sized boar herd. In the middle of the large-sized herd, there was a large red cross. Seeing this cross, Fang Yuan snickered. On his bamboo paper, there was no such marking. The 2 young hunters had also seen the bamboo paper, and found no problems. This was their own inexperience, only certain of some areas. This red cross was far beyond the village, and from this, Old Man Wong's cunningness could be seen. This was why Fang Yuan killed them. To hunt for wild boars, he needed such a beast skin map. But he was not convinced by a map drawn by others. Only getting a real map like this could it be dependable. Fang Yuan had heard all sorts of remarks in his past life. Just the word scram was not enough reason for him to kill Wang Er. When hearing the 4 hunters' conversation besides the boar trap, Fang Yuan had already planned his murder. Killing Wang Er reduced his opposition and gave him reason to obtain the map. Why wouldn't he kill him? Fang Yuan would not kill for the sake of killing. Killing is only a method. Using this method, if it can solve the problem, then why not? The old man definitely had to die. Even if he can endure the murder of his son, Fang Yuan would not be at ease. Otherwise, it would be a case of, when cutting down weeds, you must get to the roots. Otherwise, the weeds will return with the spring breeze. What? Killing the innocent? No matter which world, as long as one lives in this world, they would be intertwined in karma. How can anyone be innocent? Humans slaughter pigs. Aren't the pigs innocent? Big fish eats the small fish, and the small fish eats shrimps. In nature, there is only the food chain. There is no innocence. In this world, anyone can live, anyone can die, but nobody is innocent. Chapter 69. Life is as cheap as grass. The beast skin map was very thick. It was unlike paper that could be folded and carried around easily. Fang Yuan could only roll the beast skin up and put it back into the bamboo tube, where he then tied up both ends of the tube with hemp rope and carried it on his back. The 2 hunters stared firmly at the bamboo case, their eyes unavoidably showing signs of greed. They were not idiots. They knew the value of the map. The beast skin map is something that Goo Masters would not even bother looking at. But to mortals, especially hunters like them, it was the most valuable of treasures. The Wong family had passed this map down since the time of their ancestors. Old Man Wong was able to become a famous hunter, his name known throughout the vicinity and beyond. The map had much to do with this. It was truly an authentic family heirloom.
I'm going to ask you, in Old Man Wong's household, is there anyone else?
Fang Yuan's gaze was dark, his tone cold as he asked. The 2 young men kneeling on the ground shuddered immediately when they heard this question from Fang Yuan. They thought about what had just conspired earlier, and the greedy expressions from their faces disappeared in an instant, replaced with fear and terror.
There is no one else! The entire family is dead, Lord Goo Master! Hunter Wong originally had a wife, but that was decades ago, and she was killed by wild wolves that intruded in the village. Before his wife died, she gave birth to 2 sons and a daughter. But the oldest son, Wang Da, died on the mountain while hunting 3 years ago. There was no one else in the Wong family.
Is that so?
Fang Yuan narrowed his eyes and he looked at the two men kneeling before him, knowing that they were telling the truth. When one's life and death was in the hands of others, the probability of lying was very small. But he asked anyway,
Did you lie to me?
We would dare not to lie in the slightest, Lord! I thought of something. Old man Wong actually has a daughter-in-law, Wang Da's old wife. But after Wang Da disappeared, his wife died due to a broken heart. That year, the village even specially sent down a chastity memorial arch. But rumor has it that Wang Da's wife wanted to remarry, and she was actually hounded to death by Old Man Wang. When you killed Old Man Wang, Lord, you are helping us citizens, rooting out the evil and bringing people peace.
The other hunter quickly added,
That's right. Actually, Lord, we have long found this old Wang unfavorable. He's nothing special. It's just that he can hunt better than us. We're all just mortals, yet he thinks he's more special than us and purposely moved out of the village to live here. As the younger generation, we will sometimes ask him to teach us and impart his experiences, but he would just outright chase us away and never allow us to show up again near the wooden house.
Fang Yuan listened quietly while nodding. Although these two started belittling Old Man Wang in an attempt to save their lives, he did not sense any resentment from these two men's mouths. Fang Yuan guessed inwardly that these two men asking to consult on hunting matters is fake. He surmised that they were just over to covet the Wang family's daughter and her good looks. Yet in the end they were found out by Old Man Wang and disciplined a few times harshly.
Weeding out the wicked and letting the law-abiding citizens live in peace. Enough of such bootlicking. This time I killed them because my motive was just for this map. Well, both of you have showed a satisfying behavior. You can both go now.
Fang Yuan's tone softened, but at the same time, the right hand behind his back shone with a gloomy moonlight. The two young men kneeling on the ground felt surprise and joy once they heard this.
Thank you so much for your mercy, Lord. Lord, your generosity and indulgence we shall remember in our hearts forever.
They kowtowed on the ground, their mucus and tears overflowing. Sounds of dull knocking could be heard. After several knocks, they immediately got up and turned to leave. Although Fang Yuan was younger than them in age, after witnessing firsthand what he was doing, they were beyond fearful and terrified, wishing never to meet Fang Yuan again.
Hold it!
Just at this moment, a voice suddenly traveled over. The moment it finished, there was a swoosh, and a Goo Master jumped down from a treetop.
You both cannot leave. Tell me what happened here. All of it.
The Goo Master that had just jumped down was wearing a deep blue uniform, and there was a scarlet belt with a metal plate in the middle. There was the huge character 2 carved onto the metal plate. This rank 2 Goo Master had a slim build, his two eyes slender. He wore arm protectors on his wrists, and his calves had sturdy leg bindings. His entire being radiating with a highly capable aura.
This commoner greets Lord Zhonghe.
The two young men had just gotten up, but once they saw this Goo Master, they instantly knelt down again, prostrating themselves in admiration while greeting. This Goo Master was someone they knew. It was the Goo Master stationed at their village. Every year, to reinforce their control in the surroundings, the Guyu village would dispatch Goo Masters down into the little villages and hamlets. This would also prevent the other powers from infiltrating, and at the same time strengthen their defenses on their borders. The Goo Master named Zhang He did not bother with the two hunters kneeling on the ground, instead looking straight at Fang Yuan, asking in a cold tone,
I am the Goo Master Zhang He of the Guyu clan who has been stationed here. You are?
Fang Yuan laughed lightly and stretched his right palm out, where the Moonlight Goo was giving out a ball of moonlight in the middle of his palm. When the Goo Master Zhang He saw the moonlight in Fang Yuan's hand, his gaze softened considerably. The Moonlight Goo was the sign of the Guyu clan. This was something that could not be forged.
This matter is simple, actually. Old Man Wong's second son offended me, so I killed the entire family off in anger. Those two can be my witnesses.
Fang Yuan straightforwardly admitted, with a bold and confident manner, pointing at the two hunters kneeling down. Fang Yuan was not lying, and these two hunters nodded in haste. There was no hesitation. Zhang He stared blankly for a moment before he started laughing loudly.
You killed well! Just a bunch of measly peasant servants to actually dare to offend their masters. They deserve to be killed!
But he quickly added with a change in tone, full of emotion and deep meaning.
However, young junior, what you've done has also brought problems to me. Although Old Man Wong resided far away from the masses and stayed here alone with his family, there are still villagers that I am in charge of. I was sent out from the clan and stationed here in this village. This means I'm supposed to protect the village and be on the alert as defense. Now that you've killed these few people, the number of villagers will have lessened. During the examination at the end of the year, the clan's assessment towards me will drop.
Fang Yuan's gaze shone, and he instantly knew that this Zhang He was using this as a pretext to extort money from him. He laughed and said,
This isn't so difficult. Senior, you just have to report the truth back. Say that this entire family was killed by me, and it has nothing to do with Senior whatsoever.
When Zhang He heard this, his eyelids twitched, anger rising in his heart towards Fang Yuan, who did not know how to appreciate favors. His manner of speaking became extremely solemn.
Then I will have to conduct business impartially here. Junior, if you're not afraid of the clan's investigation, then report your name, and I will record in detail how things really are on paper.
His words brought a strong implication of threat. If it were any other youngster, they would have been frightened already. But Fang Yuan could see Zhang He's weakness from it, and he instantly said,
Then Senior shall report as it should be. My surname is Guyu, and my name is Fang Yuan.
So you're actually Fang Yuan? Zhang He's face showed astonishment.
I've been hearing about you all the time from my little brother recently. You thoroughly beat up all your classmates, extorting in front of everyone, getting 60 pieces of stones each time. Every time my little brother speaks of it, he's always jealous of how you can earn money so easily. Not to mention that time when you gambled out a liquor worm and a mud-skinned toad consecutively. This sort of luck makes people jealous. Oh, right. My little brother is Zhang Ya. You should have met each other long ago. So it's him.
Fang Yuan nodded and admitted.
Yes, every time when I buy moon orchid petals, I would buy them in Zhang Ya's shop.
Ha ha ha! Since this is the case, then we're both acquaintances. Oh well, let's forget about it. This matter, I'll handle. When he said this, Zhang He clapped his chest with his hands, putting out the appearance of one with the spirit of loyalty and self-sacrifice. He was merely using this favorable circumstance. There was no way he could have really reported the matter. After reporting such a thing, the clan's assessment towards him would still drop either way. You might as well just do a good turn to Fang Yuan. As for Old Man Wong's family's death, he could just report that they were invaded and attacked by a wild beast. It's Old Man Wong's fault for his unconventional ways of insisting to move out of the village, building a wooden house far away from the population. Zhang He was not afraid of the matter being disclosed. There were just a few mortal peasants around. Their lives were as cheap as grass. Who cares if they died? Even if the clan found out about the cover-up, they would hardly care about such a small matter.
But Junior, you have yet to graduate from the academy, and do not have the Goo Master uniform like I am wearing now. If that Wong heir saw this outfit, he'd know about your status as a Goo Master,
and wouldn't have offended you. Junior, you're a smart person, don't you think so? Fang Yuan's eyes flashed. Zheng He's words had implicit meaning, and he was actually warning himself. Do not run out of the academy and wander around for no reason. And you better not come to the area under my jurisdiction here after today to cause trouble and kill people again.
In that case, thank you very much for your advice, Senior.
Fang Yuan cupped his fists in greeting, bidding farewell to Zheng He, immediately taking his leave. Chapter 70. Using the White Boar Goo. In the black of night, the moon was shaped like a silver plate, hanging high in the sky, spewing its watery moonlight down. The dense woods lightly unfold their dense green leaves and branches in the summer wind. The waterfalls crash down as they flow, but the sounds are unable to cover the noises of the sandalwood crickets chirping about. Fang Yuan stepped onto the green grass, quietly approaching a mountain boar. This mountain boar had its head buried, puffing and snorting as it dug the emerald earth with its snout, rummaging around the soil and grass to look for worms. Wild boars are omnivorous animals. They not only eat worms, but also steal bird eggs, and are adept at hunting wild rabbits, mice, and even venomous creatures such as snakes and scorpions. Fang Yuan crept slowly behind the boar. Under the bright moonlight, the grayish-black fur coat of the wild pig could be seen clearly. Its body was strong and firm, the forelimbs short and rough. On its back was a long and stiff mane, while atop its ears was sparse fur that was erect like needles. With all 4 limbs on the ground, each foot had 4 toes, but only the 2 middle ones were digging against the soil. Its tail was thin and short, sometimes flinging about, chasing away the mosquitoes flying around. Suddenly it stopped digging, rearing its head up. At the same time, the boar's sharp little upright ears quickly trembled a few times. Although Fang Yuan had managed to stop his tracks in time, the mountain boar still found him. It immediately turned around and groaned out with warning sounds. Fang Yuan was not surprised. A wild animal was not like a domestic one. They are all very alert. Especially the wild boar. They had an acute sense of smell, and could find bird nests that were often hidden very well. Even if this mountain boar did not hear anything, when Fang Yuan neared around 100 meters, it would be able to smell his body odor, and be able to detect Fang Yuan's presence. Although Fang Yuan had 5 goo worms on him at the moment, the spring-autumn cicada, liquor worm, moonlight goo, little light goo, and the white boar goo, these goo were all not able to match each other, and were incompatible. If Fang Yuan had a smell lock goo that could cover up his body odor, and another quiet steps goo that concealed the noise of one's footsteps, he could completely and silently reach up to 10 steps away from the mountain pig. However, if he had these 2 goo, then Fang Yuan would have been keeping 7 goo worms. This would cause his primeval essence usage to be too great, and he would have difficulty supporting them. Goo masters in general can only feed 4 to 5 goo worms of the same rank. Thus, goo masters usually do not move alone, but instead form small groups of 5, or at the very least 3. Among the groups, there would be someone specifically in charge of detection, one for advancement, one bearing the offense role, and another responsible for medical treatment, while someone else handles defenses. Fang Yuan continued without stopping, getting closer to the wild boar. The boar screeched low, the white fur on its neck standing up, the symbol of its agitation. Finally, when Fang Yuan was near enough, closer than the wild boar's acceptable range, the wild boar's hooves dug the ground 3 times before spreading its muscular 4 limbs, lowering its head, and dashing towards Fang Yuan. Its upper jaw was withdrawn, its lower jaw turning upwards, brandishing 2 white tusks. Under the moonlight, the tusks shone with light as they stabbed towards Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan had no defensive goo worm, and if he was pierced by the tusk, his stomach would be penetrated, his intestines would be punctured, and he would be heavily injured, if not dead.
Moonlight goo.
Fang Yuan's face was calm as he thought in his mind, causing the moonlight goo in his palm to absorb his primeval essence and emit an eerie moonlight glow, interweaving with the moonlight from the sky. The wild boar charged towards Fang Yuan as his right palm swiped across the air. With a swoosh, the moonblade flew out and hit the wild boar in the face, causing blood to splatter all over. The wild boar cried out, turning its anger into fuel as its charge became even faster, and in the blink of an eye, it reached a few steps before Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan nimbly jumped to the side, rolling and breaking his fall. The wild boar charged right past Fang Yuan, and with a boom, crashed into a tree behind him. The tree was only as thick as a human arm. After getting knocked by the wild boar, it received devastating damage, as the tree trunk tore open and split in two. Fang Yuan stood up, quickly getting close to the wild boar while a moonblade shot out from his right hand at the same time. The eerily blue moonblade drew a straight line across the air as it landed on the wild boar. The boar's black fur had several thin cuts on it. The injury was very deep, and bright red blood oozed from it. The moonblade Fang Yuan activated used upper stage primeval essence. Thus, it was able to break even a human's toughest bone in one shot. But on the boar, it could only cause a superficial injury, and not damage the bones. A small boar like this was already so strong. This showed how cruel the living environment was in this world. The wild boar growled, and charged towards Fang Yuan again. In the process of its sprinting, the blood-dripping wound continued to tear open, and its warm blood poured out like water. Fang Yuan used the same trick, taking a tumble sideways and dodging the charge. The wild boar, although strong and very ferocious, had one weakness. It could not change directions easily. Every one of its charges was in a straight line. As long as a Goo Master is attentive enough, it is not hard to dodge.
Shoop, shoop, shoop.
Every time the wild boar charged, Fang Yuan would shoot a few moonblades, causing its old wounds to be overlapped with new wounds, and the angrier it got, the more blood flowed. Its movements began slowing, and its growling also revealed a hint of weakness.
Little light goo.
This time, Fang Yuan not only activated the moonlight goo, but also deployed his primeval essence and injected it into the little light goo. The moonlight goo, after being refined, had always stayed in Fang Yuan's right palm, turning into a blue crescent moon tattoo. After the little light goo was refined, it also resided in his right palm, turning into the shape of a 5-sided star. His dark green primeval essence entered the two goo, the moonlight emitting eerie blue moonlight, while the little light goo emitted a milky white glow. The milky white light fused into the moonlight, and the original small lump of moonlight instantly became twice as big.
Go.
Fang Yuan's right hand swept, and an enhanced giant moonblade flew out. Using only the moonlight goo, the size was only palm-sized, but with the addition and help of the little light goo, the moonblade's size doubled, and its attack range also doubled.
Swoosh!
The moonblade hit the wild boar in the neck, creeping into its black-gray fur. It emerged from the other end and flew for about 3 to 4 meters before dissipating in the air. The wild boar stood on the spot, frozen for a moment. Then blood oozed out from its injuries like a fountain. It abruptly collapsed, half of its head cut off, washed away by the pouring blood, and only a small piece of flesh kept it together with its body. A thick smell of blood gushed into his nose. Fang Yuan did not dare to hesitate. Pointing a finger at the wild boar, the white boar goo, which was residing in his aperture, instantly turned into a milky white light and entered the wild boar's body. Fang Yuan stood on the spot, nervously staying alert of his surroundings. Although the beastskin map said that the area was relatively safe, there were always accidents in nature. What if beasts were attracted by the smell of the blood? After a while, the white boar goo flew back safe and sound. The entire boar had shrunk by half, only leaving behind its black-gray fur and the intestines underneath its skin. As for the meat, most of it was eaten by the white boar goo. The strange thing was, although the white boar goo ate pork nearly 1,000 times its size, it did not change physically. There was not even a drop of blood on it, as it maintained its milky white worm appearance.
After this meal, I'll come 5 days later to hunt boars.
Fang Yuan kept the white boar goo, but did not leave immediately. Instead, he took out his knife and extracted the 2 tusks of the boar. The wild boar's body had a few things of value. The first was the pork, the second the fur, and the third is its teeth. The wild boar meat was mostly eaten by the white boar goo, and its skin was full of holes due to the moon blades being meaningless even if retrieved. Only the pair of tusks had some value. It could be used as food for certain goo worms which ate teeth as food, or used as a catalyst for some goo worms' advancement. Fang Yuan hid the teeth in the rock crack's secret cave before returning to the hostel. He did not sleep immediately, but sat on his bed and started to cultivate. Within his aperture, the primeval sea acted like waves, rising and falling. Fang Yuan was now a middle-stage goo master, so after using the liquor worm's refinement, he had upper-stage primeval essence. Thus, while the people his age had middle-stage green primeval essence, Fang Yuan's primeval essence was dark green. With killing that boar, there was only 23% of his primeval essence left in his aperture. A rank 1 goo master was not that strong in battle, or rather, nature's environment is too harsh. Even if the Moonblade could break bones, to kill a normal wild boar, Fang Yuan had to use 20% of his upper stage primeval essence.
White boar goo.
His eyes were shut tight, his spirit immersed into his aperture. In the aperture, a gush of dark green primeval essence rushed up against the flow, injecting into the white boar goo. The white boar goo emitted a bright white light, and the light enveloped Fang Yuan's body. If one looked from the outside, they would see that Fang Yuan's body was emanating the pure white light. Fang Yuan's every muscle, every inch of skin, was soaked in this white light. A feeling of numbness and itchiness was felt by him. As the white light modified his muscles, it allowed strength to slowly be infused into his body, thus gaining roots and never to be lost again. However, after a moment, the numb feeling became pain. This pain was like getting electrocuted, from numbness to sharp pain like getting cut by razor blades. Fang Yuan stopped the white boar goo. Prolonged use was not good. The white boar goo could not be overused. It could be applied about 15 minutes each day. Exceeded, and extreme pain would be felt, increasingly painful. If one continued to use it despite that, they might even die from the pain.